Hi, I'm Oliver from Eurodesk, and I'm here with Deputy Spokesperson for European Parliament. I wanted to ask you, what's your job and what's the typical day for you?
So Oliver, I first of all want to welcome you to the European Youth Event here in the European Parliament, this event that we hold every 2 years. On this occasion we have over 8,500 young people here taking over the European Parliament for 2 days, meeting with members of the European Parliament, with vice presidents of the European Parliament, commissioners, other EU decision makers, and also activists, content creators, and just engaging with each other on all of the issues that are important in their lives, but also the same issues that the European Parliament is working on here on the EU level, legislating for and making a difference for the lives of Europeans. So I'm happy to see so many journalists here as well, and there's been a lot of discussions on media freedom and disinformation and so on. So I hope that you've been able to take part in some of those. In terms of me, I've been working in the European Parliament for just over 11 years now. I started in 2014. Originally I was in our team dedicated to social media. So we have as a transparent, open, directly elected institution of the European Union. For us, there's particularly an onus to be open and transparent, and for that reason we're active on pretty much all the social media channels, and that's where I started back in 2014. After that I started working in our external policies division on relations with Southeast Asia, because the European Parliament, of course, it's about adopting decisions and legislation for the citizens of the EU, but also we have an external dimension as well. I was doing that for about 4 years, and working also a bit on our relations with the United Nations too, which are also crucially important. And in March, I came back to the field of communication and took on this new role as one of the 2 deputy spokespersons of the Parliament. So we have a team of about 15 people. Within the team, it's like 2 teams. We have one component working on disinformation, building the resilience of the institution to identify disinformation and information manipulation and risks, and also building resilience of the members and also of the staff to detect and deal with disinformation. So that's one part of our team, and we also have then a team that is of press officers who are dealing with queries from journalists like yourself on non-legislative issues related to the European Parliament, reputational matters, and then we work also very closely with our team of press officers who are dealing with the legislative side of the work of the House, the parliamentary committees and the decisions that are taken here in the plenary sessions in the chamber just behind us. So that's what I'm doing now. Of course, we have a very big communications team. You see here the audiovisual colleagues, and we have the social media colleagues, as I mentioned, press officers, and all of that is done in 24 languages because it's an institution. As I said, we are directly elected. In the last elections just over a year ago, about 180 million Europeans turned out to vote. So communications is important, and doing it in 24 languages is also key.
Can I ask you, what's your favorite part of your job?
I think my favorite part of the job, I love coming to Strasbourg. Strasbourg sessions is where you really see the Parliament in action, in terms of all 720 members sitting together in the chamber, debating on important topics, and whether it's climate action or support for small businesses or programs for young people and investment, or the many geopolitical crises and challenges that we have at the moment. And then when you can see them at 12 o'clock coming together for the voting session, I'm always impressed by that, even after 11 years. But I think it's just nice working in such a united in diversity is that motto of the European Union, and here you really see it, where you have 27 nationalities coming together to work on something together and make decisions together. And we're behind the scenes. We have the 720 members, but we're working to support them, and it's nice always to work with so many colleagues from across the continent.
Yeah, see, that sounds amazing. And when was the moment, or when did you decide that this is the communication and EU policy is the way you want to go?
I think that's a good question, one that I haven't really been asked much, but I think when I was, so you're from Slovakia, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You joined the European Union on the 1st of May 2004.
Yeah.
I was 14. My country, Ireland, had the presidency of the European Union at the time, so we have the rotating 6-month presidency, and we had it for the first half of 2004. And I remember I was still in secondary school. I was 14, and in the months before the Big Bang enlargement of the 1st of May 2004, on Irish television there were documentaries about each of the 10 new member states. And I remember watching all of them and really being excited by this idea that not that Europe was getting bigger, because all of these countries have always been in Europe, but that they were returning home to a certain extent. And it was exciting for Ireland to have the presidency then. And then I got the opportunity to travel around some of those countries as well. And it was 2 years earlier that the euro came into use. And I remember having our old currency, and then I just thought, my mind was blown by the fact that we could have countries coming together and deciding we're going to use a common currency and make people's lives much easier. And I thought that was also amazing. So it was around those years when I was in secondary school and seeing these changes happen, and the difference that they can make to people's lives, the enlargement of the European Union, decisions on even roaming charges, for example, which came a little bit later, the elimination of roaming charges, seeing concrete changes for the better in Europe.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And I learned that you also teach at universities. You studied Irish and communication. I wanted to ask how this experience built you up, gave you experience, skills for this job, and what would you recommend students in this field to focus on in their careers?
Indeed, so I did study, I'm from Ireland, and we have 2 official languages, and in the same year that I started university, I finished secondary school in 2007, and that same year Irish became an official language of the European Union, and coincidentally I was also starting university at the same time. So I decided to study Irish at university, along with a little bit of history and politics and some other things as well. And I think that's what brought me to the European Union originally. I did, as part of my master's, an internship at the Council of the European Union. So we're here in the Parliament, but the other major legislative body of the European Union is the Council, which represents the member states, where the ministers come together and make decisions. I did an internship there in translation, actually, and I think that's what opened the doorway for me to get a job eventually in the European Parliament. I would recommend to any of the 8,500 young people who are here, those who are interested in a future working with European issues. It doesn't have to be in a European institution. There are many agencies of the European Union across the continent. We in the Parliament have offices in all of the 27 member states. There are so many opportunities to work on European issues in and outside of the institutions, but I would recommend traineeships and internships. That's what, as I said, got me here first when I did my internship as part of my master's in the European Parliament. Twice a year we have an intake of what we call Schumann trainees. It's the Schumann traineeship program. The application deadline for the last round just finished very recently, but in the autumn young people should be able to, or anybody, people of any age should be able to apply. So that's one way. And I recommend, there are so many opportunities here. Of course, languages are important. I did study languages. Ultimately, if you want to get a permanent role in the European institutions, you do need to have 3 languages. But language learning is encouraged and facilitated while you're here working in the European institutions as well. So, and the thing I would recommend, I'll also highlight, is that we have so many people from so many different backgrounds working in the European Parliament. You said you interviewed some of them. We have our audiovisual colleagues behind the cameras here. We have interpreters, we have translators, lawyer linguists, ensuring that all the legislative texts are in line in all the 24 official languages. We have people working on environmental issues. We have everything you can imagine, really. And if you take in the Commission and the Council as well, it can even go to, you can work in the European institutions on space and defence, or on climate action, and everything in between, gender equality. There are so many opportunities.
Yeah, and one of the last questions, what are the best the topics that most interest you? Your office works on many topics, as you mentioned. you have multiple teams. What is the most interesting topic for you? That
Well, I think it's all interesting. What's interesting, of course, is that the work here it's really concrete in terms of the actions. In a recent Eurobarometer survey, the results of which came out earlier in the spring, a huge proportion of Europeans were of the opinion that they want Europe to do, actually I think now I'm remembering 90%. 90% of Europeans said that they wanted Europe to act in a more united fashion. That means coming together as 27, making decisions for the betterment of the European citizens. And of course, hopefully it's a European Union that will expand as well. We have a number of countries that are negotiating their accession. But I worked in terms of the topics that are most interesting for me personally. Well, I worked on external relations. That's something that is very interesting. We see how important now our relations are with many partners. There are so many challenges in the world, whether it's also issues that we need to work together on, such as climate action and so on. But I think in terms of the agenda here and the program here at the European Youth Event, you can also get an idea of the major topics that the members of the European Parliament are working on. For example, it's investment and EU funds. We currently have an EU long-term budget that is in place until the end of 2027, and preparations are now underway for the next EU long-term budget from early 2028. The European Parliament already adopted its priorities in a resolution a couple of weeks ago. The European Commission is expected to make the first proposal for the EU long-term budget in mid-July next month, and the negotiations will then likely start in the autumn. And why is this important? It's because this really will define all of the EU investments for likely the 7-year period from 2028, whether that's on hugely important programs such as Erasmus+, which many of the people in this building hopefully are having the opportunity to utilize, research funding through programs like Horizon, climate action, funding for young farmers, small businesses and so on. So that's something that's going to be really a big priority for the European Parliament in the coming months, and I would say even into next year and the following year. And also in the agenda here at the I don't know if you've managed to see it in on some of the sessions, but there's a big focus too on media freedom. Yeah. We have the Media Freedom Act, which is entering into force in the European Union in August. It was adopted by the European Parliament and it will be fully enforced from August. We had our Vice President Verheyen, who did a briefing yesterday on the Media Freedom Act. Yeah. We have fact checkers here at the European Youth Event, a stand where young people can meet fact checkers, learn about their work and a career in fact checking. We also have had the Executive Vice President of the European Commission here talking about the issue of media freedom and AI and cybersecurity. So that's just a bit of a flavour of what I think is interesting, but also what the European Parliament is working on, but some of the issues that are also being addressed in the many panels here at the European Youth Event.
Maybe for the last question, for I participant or young person already involved with some institutions or getting on Erasmus, what would you recommend them to follow? Which institution? Or for example, one activist that's interested in environmental topics, what institution he should follow, or where he should get his new?
Of course, follow the European Parliament, because this is the democratically elected legislative body of the European Union. And as I said, we had the elections pretty much exactly a year ago. It's unique in the world where you have 27 countries coming together to vote for elected representatives at the same time and to sit in the same chamber. Of course, we're one of the 3 major institutions. You have the Commission also, which proposes legislation, and then it's the Council, which represents the Member States, and the Parliament as the voice of European citizens that amend and negotiate and ultimately adopt the legislation. So you mentioned environment, right? If it's environment, all 3 institutions are working on this. You have a Directorate General in the European Commission working specifically on environmental matters and climate action and so on, but it's the European Parliament and the Council that have to define this legislation and adopt it, and then it comes into force across the European Union. So I would say all of the institutions are relevant in that regard. In the European Parliament we have a committee specifically on environmental matters.
Thanks for the interview. It was quite
Thank you, Oliver.
Yeah.
Thank you.